Hello, this is Teresa. I'm back with another video tutorial for Dare to Be Artsy. I'm going to be sharing how a lot of extra little touches and details can make a huge difference and impact on your card making. So I'm using this adorable reindeer game stamp set from Dare to Be Artsy. There is a reindeer that includes a lot of ornaments hanging from its antlers, which is the one I'm using today, and there is a version that does not have the ornaments hanging. So I'm using some Copic markers in the E family, E11, E13, and E15 or 18, I believe, to color in the reindeer itself. So I'm using the lightest color marker just as a base, and then I'm going to go over that with the medium and dark shades that I've chosen for this. So I'm just adding some shade, some shading where the darker parts would be, like such as around the edges of the face, underneath the bottom of the cap, and at the bridge of the nose. And I'll just keep working in between the darkest to medium color back to the lightest to blend these out, and then I'll start adding some more details to other parts of the colored image. Now, since you've probably seen lots of videos in Copic markers, I'm not going to say that you're going to learn anything new about Copic coloring and blending. However, I want to share with you some of the techniques I'm using to add more and more interest to this, because what I had in mind is all sorts of types of textures and details to make this really truly stand out and be unique. And so I may play some music during parts of the Copic coloring until I move forward past that part and onto some of the details that I'm going to add to this image. And as you'll notice, I'm going to deliberately not color any of the ornaments. And there is a reason why I'm not going to be doing that, but keep watching and you'll see why it is that I'm not coloring in the ornaments. I'm going to do something different to make them extra special. And this is where some of the magic begins, because I'm going to be using Nuvo drops in lots of different colors to make the ornaments. And what I'm doing is, as I use each color, I'm going to squeeze some of the drops out in the middle of each of the ornaments, or at least in the single ones, and use the nozzle tip from the Nuvo drop jar, or container rather, to spread that out as close to the edge as possible, but I don't want to cover over the stamp line. So I'm going to be switching between 2 or 3 different colors. Like right now I'm using a gold theme color, and on these complex ornaments what I'm going to do is color them in with different colors of Nuvo, but what I want to avoid is anything kind of blending together when I don't intend it to. So kind of like watercoloring, whenever you just kind of color separate areas and allow them to dry before coming back in with a different color. I'm doing a similar technique to just selectively apply one color of Nuvo drop to a section and allow it to dry, or pretty close to dry, before I come back and add a different color in the adjacent sections. So this is going to be pretty repetitive as far as what you're seeing. I'm just adding some red Nuvo drops to this particular ornament, and then I'll move along and fill in spaces as I can. And another thing I'll do is, while I'm waiting for this to dry, I'll also work on some of the other sections with different mediums. For now, I'm also filling these holly leaves in with the green Nuvo drop color, and I'm using a red drop to make some little holly berries over there. And now I'm going in with another color of Nuvo drops. And like I said, I'm avoiding the section right next to the one that I most recently added to, because I want to give that some time to dry, because the last thing I want is this stuff to start blending together. I want them to remain in distinct sections. So this kind of gives you an idea how this is starting to come together. And now here's another special touch that I like to add to colored images, is using colored pencils. And I'm using a dark brown colored pencil. It's a Prismacolor pencil. I'm going to start with a light touch in adding some more depth around the edges of the image. And I'm also going to use the same pencil to add some more texture, because an animal is not a flat. You think about their fur is not flat. It's not smooth, not exactly smooth. So I'm going to use this pencil with some light flicking touches. So I'm being very light-handed at this point. And you always want to make sure that your pencil is sharpened and stay sharpened when you're adding these kinds of details. You don't want to press down really hard when you're doing this. But just adding these additional touches adds a lot more depth and dimension and interest to my image already. And I'm just going to concentrate on adding some shading and color, like I'm doing here to the bottom side of the ears. And I did not use Copic markers in that area earlier. I'm just adding some of the color simply by adding this brown pencil. So now you see I'm going to go around the face, and I'm going to add even more textured marks so it looks even more like an animal's fur than it did before. And now I'm pulled out a red pencil that I'm going, actually it's kind of like in between a red and a pink, and I'm going to add some more interest to the tongue as well as the inner portion of each of the ears where that pink inside of the ear is. And after that, I'm going to concentrate on adding some more depth and dimension to the collar, actually to the bells, which you'll see in just a second. I'm using a gold metallic pen to just add some gold on top of the bells, and then eventually I'll go back on top of that as well as the tongue with some crystal glaze. So I want to make the tongue look like it's wet, and I want the bells to have some dimension, so that's why I added that there. And then I'm gone to my third shade of Nuvo drops, and I'm adding that to the middle section of those more complicated ornaments that have 4 distinct sections. So I'm adding this fourth color to the middle section as well as to the very teeny little area at the very top of each one of these ornaments. And here's a close-up of how this is starting to shape up. Isn't that some gorgeous shine and some dimension already? So I've gone back and I'm going to add some darker red to the hat, just like I've done with the face and inside of the ears, and going over with a darker red pencil in order to just add some more depth to the little cap as well. And now I'm using some deco foil adhesive on the little puff at the top of the cap. And the reason I'm doing that is once the glue is dry, it will be very sticky, and then I can add some flocking material to that little cap and add even more texture to this card. So you're starting to get a feel for what I mean about that. So here I'm using a white gel pen to fill in more details. And now I'm going to start constructing my card. I have a white card base, a piece of aqua cardstock and patterned cardstock from Dare to Be Artsy, and I'm going to add my reindeer to the back. Now what I did do with the reindeer is I die cut it using my brother's Scan & Cut because there is not a matching die for this particular version of the reindeer. There is one for the one that does not have the ornaments, as well as dies for the separate ornaments if you wanted to do more than a one layer. So I put on my banner first, and then I'm tucking the reindeer behind that banner, and I'm adding back on a couple of little ornaments that accidentally got cut during my electronic die cutting process. But once I add the foam tape on the back of them and put them on the card, you can't tell that they got separated in the first place. So the final touch to this card is to add each one of the hooves on either side of the sentiment strip. And therefore it looks like the little reindeer is peeking over the top of the sentiment strip. And I think this is just so cool. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. If you did, please leave a thumbs up or a comment. In the meantime, here are some other videos you can watch. And I dare you to get artsy.